Excited to be here. What I want to present today in the next 30 minutes or so are the findings from our most recent sales performance scorecard study. We literally launched this right after the 4th of July. I think it was the 8th of July. We gathered data through July and August. We had 850 responses to our survey. And what I want to present today is a sneak peek of our SPS survey. The report, which is going to be somewhere between 45 plus pages, 45 and 50 pages, will be out next Thursday. Sandler was a sponsor of the study this year. We're very grateful for that. And because of that, they will be sharing a copy of the report when it's released next week with all of you that have registered for the summit today. So sneak peek, you'll get more details next week, but I want to jump into this right now and have some fun with it. We're big fans of Edwards Deming. For those of you who don't know, he was the father of the quality movement back in the 70s. And we always love to start with his quote, which is, "Without data, you're just another person with an opinion." And clearly everyone is entitled to their own opinion. But when it comes to making decisions, you'll hear more and more these days, data-driven cultures, data-driven decision-making. And what we're going to do is provide some data for you that's hot off the press, as they say. So to follow up Christy's presentation about economic uncertainty, the question that we have is, did somebody say recession? And she listed all the things, inflation, economic uncertainty, high interest rates. There's some debate right now. I guess you could say there are opinions right now about whether we're in a recession, going into a recession, going to have a soft landing, whatever. We're interested in saying, what can you do now? She mentioned positioning. Whenever there's change, the change in and of itself is neutral. How you're positioned relative to the change is what makes it good or bad. And what we want to do is follow up on Dave and Christy's comments with some specifics on how you might position yourself well for the coming year. So here's the data. Here are the first two data points from the 2022 Sales Performance Scorecard Survey. In terms of sellers meeting or beating quota, 61%, this is across 850 responses, 61% of reps met or exceeded their quota. That doesn't mean they achieved 61% of their quota. 61% of reps made or exceeded their number, and 91% of reps hit their revenue, and the average revenue attainment was 91%. So 61% of reps made it, and the firms overall, across all of them, their average attainment was 91%, which of course means many did much better than that, and some did not do as well. So what we want to say is, or ask is, what can you do about this? What can you do to get ready? And to do that, we look back at other black swan events, the recession in 92, 93, the tech bubble implosion in 2002, 2003, and the most recent one, the Great Recession, 2008, 2009. A couple of things are going to look familiar here or similar. Percentage of reps meeting or beating quota in 2008 was 61.2%. And the average revenue attainment was 89.4%. In 2009, that dropped to just below 52%, and revenue attainment was 77.5%. So an average fall off of 12% from 2008 to 2009, and it took those firms about 2 years to get back to where they were. So Christy started by quoting Ryan saying, "The number is the number." Well, the number is the number, and what we saw in 2008, 2009 is people fell off that number dramatically. So what can you do about it? The other thing, talking about changes in the buyer's journey and changes in buyers, this is from our 2021 buyer study that we did in conjunction with Korn Ferry, where we had a panel of 500 B2B buyers, people who had $10,000 and above signature authority, sometimes well above 10,000. And we ask, what's the preferred resource you go to solve business problems? And this is going to provide some additional data to Dave's comment about maintaining or creating equal business stature. The first place people turn to is their own experience. Have I had this problem? Have I seen this problem before? What did I learn from that? How did we address it? And with whom did we address it? So their past experience themselves and their past experience with the vendor that they used then, and they may still be working with now. Number two, we're subject matter experts from industry or third parties. So SMEs, SMEs, whatever you want to call them, subject matter experts were number two. They were a close second. And then industry and professional online communities, industry events, trade shows, and conferences. Those are starting to happen again. In fact, my partner, Jim Dickey, is at Dreamforce right now in San Francisco. Business or industry publications, peers and colleagues. Down here in 7th place, vendor websites. We did the same buyer survey in 2018. In 2018, vendor websites were in 3rd place. In 2021, they dropped to 7th place. Then web searches, Dave talked about those. 9th place, vendor salespeople. And then finally, local and national professional trade associations. The question we have is, and I'll just ask it in terms of what Dave was saying, in terms of maintaining or creating equal stature. This does not look like, I'll go ahead and use my pointer here. This does not look like equal stature. Our question is, can sellers start showing up more as subject matter experts rather than, as he said, spewing, talking about their products and services? Can we start talking about the industry, business problems, and so on? So this is a bit of a wake-up call. The other thing that we can say is, or has been said, is to sellers, buyers are just not that into you. Our question is that fact or myth? And we've got some data to support that as well. So this is from the 2022 SPS. Again, going to be released next week. You will have access, you will have a copy of this PowerPoint, but we expand on these charts and the commentary much more in the report, as you might imagine. The preferred point of engagement with the salesperson during the buying process, 21% said at the beginning, identifying and clarifying needs. Another 22% said identifying possible solutions. And then you'll see the later portion here, evaluating solutions, 20%, resolving outstanding questions and concerns. 1 in 10 said contracting exact terms and conditions. So we're talking relatively late in the sales or the buying process before they want to talk to anybody or engage with them. And some are already at implementation. 1 in 10 doesn't want to engage until after they bought something, which is hard to believe. But this is another wake-up call. You see here, this 43%, 21 and 22, 43% would like to engage early. 3 years ago, that was 56%. So the needles are pointing in the wrong direction, folks. So we asked these folks, is there anything that would make you want to involve sellers earlier? And in 2018, 9% of folks said, there's nothing you could do. We do not want to talk to sellers earlier, okay? Which meant 91% said, yeah, there was something. In 2022, 25% of buyers said, there's nothing you can do. So almost 3 times as many folks are saying, we don't want to talk to you. So when we say they're not that into you, they don't want to hear from you, we're not kidding. 25%, 1 in 4 said, there's nothing you can do. But of the 75% that remain that said, yes, there is something, the number one thing is if it's new to me. So the preferred way is to look at my own experience, my experience with a vendor. If I don't have any experience, then I'm interested in talking to vendors. That would get me to engage earlier. Number 2 is if this is risky, and that has 2 flavors. One is it risky to me personally, as in a career limiting decision? And or is it risky to my organization? And the third one is if this is complex. There are a lot of moving parts here. I don't want to build my own car with all the parts dumped in the driveway. I want somebody in here to help me, and I want somebody in here to engage with early if it's complex. Okay, so few stats, I think, to back up the questions of leading through economic uncertainty. Okay. Another thing we want to point out, and we have a video on this on our website, so I'm going to run through it pretty quickly, but Dave talked about SaaS companies in particular. And one of the things we want to point out is you are not going to expense control your way out of a recession. Okay. Whenever there's talk of recessions, economic uncertainty, all these things going on, a lot of times the knee-jerk reaction will be expense control. And the first two things that CFOs jump on is got to cut back on travel and training. Travel and training, got to knock that off right now. And what we're saying is you're actually making a mistake. You're really pulling on, as Christy said, the wrong lever. So here's a P&L for a SaaS company, 100%, 100,000, 10 million, however you want to look at these numbers. When you look at COGS, cost of goods sold, 10%, gives a gross profit of 90. You've got fixed development, G&A of 20 and 30. Here's your sales expense, which is high. We also have this on our site for a traditional manufacturing company. You'll see it's much different, but it's only more profound when you see the effects. But here the sales expense is 40%, giving you a pre-tax profit of 20. Okay, so let's talk about expense control. If we cut sales expense by 5%, all of these top numbers stay the same. We reduce this 40 to 38, which yields 22, so which is a 10% increase. So 5% gets you 10% or a 2x multiplier. Okay, I'm going to go through this quickly. We're a little pressed for time, but again, we have the video on our website that goes through this in detail. I'll show you that in a second. What if you could increase sales volume by 5%? So we increase this 100 to 105, COGS to 10.5, which gives us a 94.5% gross profit. These numbers, the rest of them all stay the same, takes us up to 24.5, which is a 23% increase. So in this case, increasing sales volumes, we went from 2x for belt tightening to 4.6x for increasing volume. Okay. What if we just increased price? Okay. And everything else stayed the same. We increased price by 5%, that drops straight to the bottom line, which is 25% or a 5x multiplier. And some firms are doing this right now. They're quoting, supply chain problems or pent-up demand. There's reduced supply, inflation. All of these things, people are trying to raise costs or raise prices. But if you can't do that, one of the questions we used to ask is, well, what's a way of raising price without raising price? And without trying to be too clever about it, the answer is avoid discounting. So what's the impact of a 5% discount? So we go from 100 to 95, drops this gross profit to 85, everything else stays the same. A 5% discount gives up 25% of your profits. Okay, so that's also a 5x multiplier. The problem is it's in the wrong direction. And if you did a 10% discount, you would give up half of all of your margin, half of all of your profits. Okay, so don't be quick to reach for that lever, is what we're saying. But what we're also saying is you are not going to expense control your way out. What you want to do is increase volumes and hang on to pricing. So how do we do that? A few things I'll just share. I mentioned our website. I'll blast through this very quickly, salesmastery.com. When you go there, you'll see you can click up here on the videos in the menu, and that'll bring you to this page. We've got about 30 something videos there. They're all free. They're all available to you. And they fall into 5 categories: general stuff, sales math, which is where you'll find the video on the impact of discounting. There's stuff there for sellers, sales managers, and AI for sales. By the way, while I'm talking about levers, and Christy mentioned pulling on levers as well, Archimedes had a famous quote, which was, if I had a lever long enough, And most people remember that quote as, "I could move the world." Okay. Actually, the quote was, "If I had a lever long enough and a fulcrum against which to place it, I could move the world." And in our view, sales managers, first line sales managers, are the fulcrum for all of the levers that are available to you. Okay, so when Christy showed motivation and managers and technology, all of those levers, in our view, first line sales managers are the fulcrum. And without a fulcrum, a lever is just a stick. And a lot of these tools like CRM and other AI for sales solutions and so on just wind up being sticks because the managers are not fully engaged. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit at the conclusion here, but it's hard for me to overstate how strongly I feel about this, particularly when we start talking about coaching. Okay, so what were the things in the past downturns that led to success? These have already, interestingly, we didn't coordinate these, but I'm happy to reinforce what Dave and Christy have already said. Number one is reassess the buying process. Dave mentioned this. Things change in this environment. The buyer's journey is being adjusted. Number one, you want to find out what is the current buying journey and what is the current buying process, and then optimize your sales process to align with that. You can't keep running old scripts if you're in new territory. So be sure and take a look at that. And this last one, which we're going to spend time on, is enabling the existing sales team. A lot of folks think the way we're going to make the number is by beefing up the size of the team. Christy already talked about this. We can add some data to it. Right now, one of the questions we asked in the 2022 SPS is ramp up time for new reps. It's 8 months across all the industries, all the companies that responded, 8 months. So if you're looking for someone to add someone to the team that's going to help, make Q4 and give you a running start on 2023, then you should have hired them not later than the end of January. Okay, which is a difficult thing to do now. If you did it then, great. This enablement and reinforcing skills will apply to them equally. But if you are thinking now you're going to be bringing people on board to help next year, they'll start contributing consistently on average the second half of next year. Okay, so just be aware of that. Okay, so what was the history lesson from last time? And it was fun to see Christy quoting CSO Insights, because that was Jim and my former company before we were acquired by Miller Hyman, and in turn they were acquired by Korn Ferry. And unfortunately, CSO Insights does not exist anymore today, but Sales Mastery does. So we're kind of back. What we introduced in 2007 was what we called the SRP matrix, the Sales Relationship Process Matrix, where we defined 5 levels of relationship and 4 levels of sales process. And we also had, based on the data, 3 levels of performance. The first, performance level 1, were folks down here in the lower left-hand corner, operating in a random way. There was no established sales process. People basically free to do their own thing. A lot of times what people will say in this area is, we hire good people and get out of their way. Okay, great. We think that's just benign neglect. But in any event, being random and being at lower levels of relationship doesn't mean in good times you're unsuccessful. It means you're unpredictable. But in uncertain times, it absolutely means you're unsuccessful. These people who continued to do what they were doing in 2009 got crushed, okay? But what we did see is if they moved up to level 2, which meant implemented more formal processes and started talking about things other than the products and services, started talking about business solutions, business problems, the customer's customer, and so on. If they were able to move up to performance level 2 in terms of their behaviors, their results were about even with where they were in 2008. The prior year. So they didn't have that 12% fall off. These guys got crushed. These guys basically were running in place. They weren't running the same way. They were maybe running harder. They were running smarter. They were running differently. But because of that, they essentially held fast or stayed in place. The folks that were at performance level 2, if they continued to do what they were doing, they got crushed. But if they moved up to performance level 3, more formal process, started implementing not just coaching, but collaboration, more technology, so on. They, again, held steady, basically running in place, not by doing the same, but by doing different. They were able to maintain their position and not get crushed. So are we in for a recession? I don't know. Will it be a hard or soft landing? I don't know. But what we can tell you is if you start moving in this direction and things go badly, you'll do better than doing more of what you've been doing. And number 2, if things don't go terribly wrong or aren't as bad as everyone's predicting, you're going to do much better. Okay. And the numbers all support that. Okay. So let's talk about coaching. Christy mentioned that. One of the things, and I think it's, like essential. One of the problems is most managers are doing what was done to them. We call it victims of victims. But in any event, let's talk about coaching and then we'll get back to how you can help them. We asked in this year's survey, this is from the SPS, the company's approach to sales coaching. Do they leave it up to each manager? 36% said they did. Do they have an informal coaching guidance? Another 32% there. So that's 2/3 right there, 68%. Formal coaching process, we expose them to it and we expect them to use it and we reinforce that, 12.5%, basically 1 in 8. And formal coaching supported by technology, CRM, analytics, and other technology, 20%, basically 1 in 5. Okay. So does it make a difference? Well, we think it does. We looked at their results. For these first 2, ad hoc and informal, okay, when we look at their results, and these are results of forecast deals. So Christy she was quoting CSO Insights, 57% of deals don't close. That's actually, it's true. They don't close for you. Half of them might close for somebody else. So we break it down 3 ways: wins, competitive losses, and no decisions. Firms that operate in an ad hoc, informal way with their coaching, their win rate, and this is not pipeline, folks. This is forecast all the way through the sales process to the point where we're forecasting it. The win rate was 47%. By the way, a win rate in the come out roll in craps on a pass line bet is 49.2%. So you're better off just rolling the dice. Competitive losses, 25%. But look at this third one, 28% no decisions. And these are exactly, Chris, these did not close for anybody. These deals just evaporated. And so I want to go back to something Dave was talking about in terms of knowing where you are and really qualifying. Pre-call planning and really talking about qualifying. That's not just at the beginning. We're saying you need to qualify throughout the sales process and throughout the buyer's journey. This 28% no decisions is enormously expensive. Number one, if you could reduce that, you're going to free up a lot of calories. And number 2, you're going to create some other opportunities. The win rate for those who operated in the formal coaching process way, their win rate jumped up to 53. Competitive losses only dropped down a point. No decisions, 23%. Look at the last one here. Formal with technology, the win rate jumped up to 60% and losses were split evenly between competitive losses and no decision. Look at the difference here between 20 and 28%. Not only does that free up a lot of sales calories and selling cycles, but it also frees up space in your sales funnel for new real opportunities, real ones to get into the pipe. As long as you're dragging these along, they're consuming resources and they're also taking up space, okay? So this is I think this is the money slide of this presentation, is coaching. Do your managers know how to coach? Have they been coached? I'll tell you when the room gets real quiet when we ask, who's coaching the coach? And that's not just the first line sales managers. Who's the coach for the directors? Who's the coach for the regional VPs? Who's the coach for the VP or the CRO or the CSO? Who's coaching them? And if the answer is, I'm good. I'm a big kid. I don't have to eat my veggies. Then the integrity of the whole thing goes out the window. Okay. So when we look at sales training, this is another thing that we looked at, assessing sales training programs. We looked at product training, sales methodology and process training, competitive differentiation, big deal. A lot of folks want to emphasize that. Customer buy cycle, heard some talk about that already today. Return on investment and purchase justification training. One of the things during recessions, CFOs become CFNOs. They don't want to write any checks going out till they see checks coming in. So can we talk about no? Can we add a no? And so they become CFNOs. A lot of folks are putting emphasis here right now. And finally, sales technology usage, and what these different colors. The black section is the training is unacceptable. The dark gray needs improvement. Light gray is adequate. And then we combined above average and excellent in here. You can see 20% of firms say that their product training is above average, exceeds expectations or excellent. Sales methodology process training 15, competitive 20, customer buy cycle 25, ROI 19. The two lowest are sales methodology and process training and sales technology usage training. Those are the two lowest. So we looked at, back to this one, you've seen these two, 61% of reps made quota, 91% average quota revenue attainment. So we looked at all the training, all the process levels, implementation, all the technology, and the winning combination turned out to be those that the formula we're about to recommend. Their 73% of their reps hit their number, and their average revenue attainment was 100%. Okay. What did they do? You remember this slide, how you move up? Okay, number one, they had rigorous process. So all these folks were level 3 process, and you'll see these defined in the report next week when it's sent out to you. You'll see the definition. They were all level 3 or above. They had consistent ongoing coaching. Talk about what that means. But specifically, you saw the money slide, what it means for managers to be coaching. They were in the exceeds or excellent ranking for sales methodology and process training, ditto sales technology and usage training. So the two that were the very lowest are the ones that provided the very highest results, okay, which I think is worth knowing about, okay?
And it's so awesome, Barry. Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing that with us, because that's huge. I think obviously you can tell why we had you on there, because I think Sandler covers at least 3 out of those 4 buckets. But awesome to partner with you on the research, and we're excited to share that info out next week. So everybody on the line today, make sure you check your email next week. We're going to be sending that report out. We also have some other cool stuff, a Selling Power magazine featuring Sandler content, other cool things coming out with the recordings. We don't share the PowerPoints of all of our stuff today, but that recording is up on YouTube right now when we're broadcasting live. So if you need to go back and catch a screenshot or anything. Final thoughts, Barry?
I have 2 final thoughts. One of the questions we asked you in leveraging technology is your CRM system a system of engagement or a system of record? And most of them said a system of record. I forget the exact number right now, which means it's a checkbox. Yeah, everything's accurate. There's a note. 5 of what you say, 30 of the 6,000 words made it into the system. Those that use it as a system of engagement, of content management, of exchange, and so on, much better. And so here's my final tip in the closing seconds is Do not let your reps or managers give their reports in using Excel or PowerPoint. Make them use the system to show how they're managing their business, their pipeline, their process. And that's how you know they actually know how to use it. And I'm going to stress the training for technology usage. Since you went ahead and bought it, why not teach them how to use it? Here's our contact.
There you go. I think you're playing yourself off with music there, Barry.
Oh,
but reach out to
Yeah.
Barry. The email's there. Go to salesmastery.com. We appreciate all of the insights today and great research. Thank you so much.